Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Two Girls and a Forbidden podcast. I am Fire Princess Lily, and today I am flying solo. You might be wondering why that is. That Alice and I have a big fight, and now I'm running this podcast by myself. No, as you've noticed, we've been off the air yeah, off the air. We'll just say that for 3 weeks, and part of that is because the other host, Alice, sometimes has medical emergencies, and so that means she can't record. So when that happens, we've decided that you shouldn't miss out on a excellent podcast. So I will be covering manga that Alice doesn't particularly care for. That's right, you can't like them all. I don't like them all, but I like most of them. And this one is kind of actually a guilty pleasure of mine. But before we get into it, before we get into today's topic, let's talk a little bit about what's been going on in my world. Working a lot, doing a lot of work. I visited some friends recently. That was a good time. Hung out, recorded an episode of the other podcast that I do. Well, one of the other ones that I do. And played a lot of River City Girls, beat the main story, which has a twist ending that I didn't care for. Apparently, if you do the New Game Plus and with one of the other characters, the ending changes. So I'm almost interested in seeing what that's all about, what that's like. But we'll see if I get the nerve to do so. I'm not so great at beat 'em ups, but I did manage to get through that one. Whew. So, other than that, work, busy bee. That's what I do. So, yep, as you notice, we're not talking today about All the World is Yuri except for me. That is something that I'm going to do with Alice, and it's actually going to be kind of a shorter episode, I think, because there's only really 8 chapters to talk about, and that's just how it is. The rest of them haven't been translated into English yet, so I'm the one who has to kind of wait on that. But we don't think that you should, miss out on the story itself. It's pretty decent, pretty good. I like it. But before, I don't want to give it all away. So let's talk about this one. This one, as I mentioned, is a guilty pleasure of mine. It's called Yuri Is My Job. Which, you know what? This podcast is kind of like a job, and it's about Yuri, so I relate. But not really, because if you've paid attention to this podcast, if you've been listening since the first episode, not the introduction episode, but the actual first episode, Hana and Hina, I am not a fan of what we call forced drama. Misunderstandings just continuously happen. Pratfalls. It's a total pratfalls in relationships. It's a total trope. It's one that Yuri manga uses a lot. It is not my favorite trope by any means, and it's weird to say that because what I'm about to tell you is, like I've already said, this is a guilty pleasure, and if forced drama gained consciousness, decided to become a manga all on its own, it would have grown into this very manga. This one is just so much drama, and it's all forced, and it's just like so I don't want to say cringy. I feel just secondhand embarrassment for every single character, except for one. She kind of has her shit together. Well, you know, when I'm thinking more about it, no, all of them. I feel just secondhand embarrassment for all of them. So yeah, let's talk about this. So what is this manga about? Well, it's about a girl named Hime, and her entire life is another trope, basically. Often in Yuri manga, you'll see the main character, the heroine, and when you initially meet her, her big goal is to settle down with a rich guy. They always have a different plan on how they're going to go about that. Even one of my favorite one-shots starts out kind of that way. Like, it's real cute. But, like, it's a big trope. Like, I'm going to, do this, and I'm going to get the rich guy, and I'm going to be basically the trophy wife. That's my job. That's my goals and my inspirations, my aspirations in life. And Hime is no different. That is her entire thing. And her plan is she's just going to be a perfect, prim princess. That's her whole thing, admired by all. because through her actions. And we actually opened up with like a group of boys who want to like confess to Hime because she's so perfect, so amazing, and she of course turns them down because that's not what she's after. She's not after like these high school boys or whatever. They're not important. They're not they're not the goal. Maybe if one of them was the heir to a fortune, she'd be interested. But for now, no. Yes, real shallow character, but she puts on this act totally. She's totally different, like in her private time, which we do see a little bit of that in the manga when she's hanging out with her friend Kanako, who is the only person who knows that her entire life is an act. So Hime is putting on this act, and she's walking home, still carrying on the act because she's out in public, and somebody could spot her, recognize her, and so she needs to always just put on this perfect princess persona. And well, when she's getting praised by passerbys, like, oh, she's so cute and look how proper and she is, she's not paying attention to where she's going. She falls down some stairs. Now, luckily for her, not so luckily for Mai is in the way. Mai is another character. She actually runs a maid cafe, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So she falls on top of Mai, and she's like, oh no, I'm so sorry, I wasn't paying attention to where I'm going. Are you okay? And Mai at first kind of just like brushes it off, like, yeah, it's fine or whatever. But then she tries to get up, and oh no, her arm is hurt. But Hime is ready to book it already because she got told, oh, everything's cool, everything's fine. But yeah, nope, not gonna happen. Mai's like, oh my goodness, I hurt my arm when you fell on me. Oh man, oh, I know what you could do. You could do my job for me. You can do the work that I can't do because my arm is hurt. And Hime is like, but you already said you were fine, so I think I'm gonna end. That's when we enter another character named Sumika. She is a gangster Garu girl. She the gal archetype, which is one of my favorite archetypes, to be honest. And think, if you're familiar with all, think Saki from Zombieland Saga. That's who this character basically is. And so she comes up and she's like, hey, is everything okay, Mai? Because they're co-workers. And Mai's like, well, my arm is hurt and this girl did it, and she's trying to like get away from the situation and not like own up to what she did. And so Sumika like pins Hime to a wall. Is like, hey, you trying to get away? And Hime's like, I guess I'm not. And so she goes to work in this maid cafe. Now the maid cafe has a theme, and the theme is an all girls high school named Lieben Academy, I believe, or Liber Academy. It's an all girls school. Anyway, I'm not even going to pronounce it. It's all German, right? It's all German. And so Hime has never worked a day in her life, so she's not very good at it. But she also meets the other employee there, whose name is Ayano Kyoji, which is a mouthful to say, so we're just going to call her Yano because of reasons. And so, but while Hime's messing up kind of on the floor because she's new or whatever, Yano helps her out. She's very, sweet. And Sumika is more than happy to just like kind of like hang back because it's all supposed to be like a shoujo manga. It's supposed to look like a Yuri manga, right? Just in a real life cafe setting. And the customers are super into it. They're like, they're happy to just like kind of like watch the interactions and make, guesses like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Like, there's a lot of tension between Sumika and Yano, like in a real kind of romantic teasing sort of way. And now Hime's there and they're like, oh my gosh, a new girl, who could she be? And they're watching this interaction between Yano and Hime, and they're like, oh my goodness, is she like a new little sister or something? What's going on? And Hime actually makes the mistake of calling Yano her Oni-sama, which like sends the cafe into like a frenzy. Not just in the cafe, but online. Everybody's talking about it, and it's actually a terrible, terrible mistake. And we find out that Yano is not the kind, sweet Oni-sama that Hime thinks she is, because once all the people have left, all the customers have left, she basically lets Hime know that that was a big fucking mistake. Wow, she can't believe she messed up so bad, and she hates her. Like, it's a whole thing. And so we find out through the manga that Hime, despite being like, she has like, decent grades and whatever, and people like her, and people assume that she's pretty, decently talented and smart, she has trouble differentiating between the reality of the real world and the lies of the people in the cafe as their characters. And so she can't quite figure Yano out at all. She's like, one minute she's like super nice and kind to me as like, this person, this cafe worker, her character, but then she'll turn around as her actual self and be super mean to me, and I don't know, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know why this could possibly be. And so that's kind of where all the drama stems from, is just Hime's inability to separate Yano's personalities as the character Yano Koyoji in the all girls Libre Academy Cafe, and and her actual personality of being kind of, a serious person who wants things done a certain way, and who doesn't like Hime at all. And there's a reason for that, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Kaneko is worried about Hime-chan because she's always rushing off after school. She won't talk to her about this new job that she's got. She has to continue working the job because it's not just that my like twisted her arm or like bruised her arm. No, it's broken. So she has to, work at the cafe until that's taken care of. So Kaneko goes to the cafe because she's worried. Like, she follows Hime there and almost causes like the biggest scene because she has an even harder time understanding that it's an act in comparison to Hime. It is like, woof, a pair of dummies. There's a whole like thing that I kind of just skipped over where Hime, like, as in the cafe as her character, kind of forces Yano's character into being like her big sister, like for real. They like exchange crosses. It's a whole like thing. Like, it starts with an S. It's like the Schwischen or something like that. I can't. It's German. It's super super German, and I just do not speak German. Which really only serves to upset Yano further because she did not want to get saddled with Hime at all, and now she is 100% saddled. But Hime is, as the manga goes on, she gets more comfortable in her role, still can't differentiate between actual real personality Yano and cafe personality Yano, but she at least has a way in on trying to get this strange girl that she doesn't know to love her. That's the act. Unfortunately, Kaneko like totally gums up everything because Kaneko has feelings for Hime, doesn't understand how to process those feelings at all, and is really more of a stalker. Like, Hime is totally clueless. Like, Kaneko's photo is just filled with pictures of Hime. It's really weird, really creepy. But that's another Yuri archetype. So it's just what that is. Whew. Anyway. So Kaneko actually starts working at the cafe because she's determined to help Hime, see that this is a terrible like mistake. She shouldn't be there, and more importantly, she's threatened by Hime's determination to get closer to Yano and have Yano like her. She doesn't understand why Hime would even want that, right? So it's a whole thing. Anyway, moving on. So, Kaneko is continuously just concerned and whatever with Hime, and Hime is like, no, you don't understand, whatever, and like, don't worry about it. And then Kaneko like rushes away, and so Hime chases after her sort of like a minute afterwards and thinks she's behind like a changing curtain and explains like, no, like, this isn't serious. This is all like, my act. I'm always doing this. I'm always doing this act. You know about this act. I'm just trying to get her to like me. It's all a lie, whatever. And then she notices Kano off to the side, and who's behind the curtain? It's actually Yano. And she is pissed because she was almost like, okay, maybe Hime's a decent kind of person. Maybe I'm wrong, and she has her reasons to feel like she might not be totally being straightforward, but she's trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. And Hime has like totally fucking blown that shit all out of the water. Blah. And that's kind of like, oh man, Kaneko adds so much drama to this. It's like it's almost hard to read, and if I didn't like have such like a guilty pleasure for like um the characters themselves, I would totally not pick this up. I absolutely understand why Alice doesn't much care for this. The reason that Yano doesn't trust Hime is because Hime had a friend like Kaneko back when she was in elementary school who knew about Hime's act. Basically, like Hime confessed it to her, and they were friends. And you find out in the next volume why they aren't friends, why etc. Blah blah blah. But it turns out that that Yano is actually that girl, and she's like, I thought you were just maybe playing dumb or stupid, but no, you really just did not recognize me, and that's why I don't trust your ass. And that's kind of how the first volume ends, with the girl who had like outed her previously in her life as being like a liar is now the same person she's trying to impress, and she's not falling for this act because she's seen it before. Whew. And that's that's the first volume. It's like you really have to be into Yuri. Like, no, that's not right because Alice is way into Yuri. Like, you have to be really into like just punishing yourself in order to read this, I guess. Good things about this manga. I like all the characters like individually. Well, maybe the exception of Kaneko. Kaneko's weird, and like I said, she adds most of the drama. But individually, I do like each of the characters. In a together setting, it's a little they're easy to digest. I kind of just wish they were their cafe personalities all the time because those are the better personalities, obviously. Although in later volumes, Sumika is really great. She's one of my favorites, and I think she's actually in love with Yano, but has enough sense to not try to get in between like stuff. Like, she's like, I'm not here to like muddy the waters, or like, you know, I'm not here to eat where I shit. All right, or shit's where I eat. Um, all the character designs are really really good. There's like none of that. A lot of the problems with Yuri manga is just like the same face. Like, it's one artist doing it, and you know that means that sometimes the girls just look the same. But this mangaka has a really easy time like making all the girls look different, which, as you know, I appreciate. It's really cute designs. I like the cafe uniforms. They're really cute. Like, they have little bow ties, or not, like handkerchiefs really, to signify what quote unquote year they're in. It's really good, and I like that they're trying to like give this experience to cafe patrons of like this whole thing. Like, and even the cafe patrons get like chances to like interact with the quote unquote school system. It's cool. I like it. I like the concept. I just don't like, there's a lot I don't like about this, but I continue to read it because I like to punish myself, more or less. I don't like the forced drama, even though, like I said, it kind of is what propels this manga forward. I just wish that, like, you have to have some kind of turbulence, right? You have to that's turbulence makes up a story, right? If everything is just sunshiny and free and like blah 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 the whole way through, it's kind of like a boring story. So there has to be tensions, there has to be turbulence, and I get that, but it's like, oh, I just wish there wasn't like quite so much. And I really wish that Kaneko herself wasn't like the driving force of problems, because as this manga goes on, she really like keeps ramping it up, and you think she's gonna get better, but then instead she goes like all the way from 0 to 100 real fast, and she was like, it's crazy. So yeah, why do I grade this? Well, we're gonna use a 1 through 10 system because I keep forgetting to do that. Personally, for me, like I said, it's a guilty pleasure. I I like to read this. I've read it multiple times, and so that means for me personally, it's about a 7.5. As somebody who maybe wouldn't be a guilty pleasure for, this manga right here would probably be like, if I were grading it for Alice, Alice would say that this is a 0. She hates this. But for the average person, I would say probably about a 4 or 5 and around there. It's very middling. Like if you're not really into the characters, it probably will not be a fun experience for you. And so that's this week. That's Yuri is my job in a nutshell. Hope you enjoyed. It's just been me talking, and that's why I gave a bit more of a in-depth sort of reading about it. Whereas me and Alice would have just like kind of bounced back and forth without getting too deep into it. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Keep listening. If you want to find me online off this podcast, you can always find me on Twitter at dat with spelled DAT Fire Princess on Twitter. I'm also on YouTube at Fire Princess Reviews, where I review all kinds of comics and cartoons. Kind of like what I'm doing now. It's just very, very like broad on what topics I'm covering. And my other podcasts such as One Half Podcast, where me and my friend Viv talk about each episode of Rama as we watch them, and Living That X Life, which is also kind of like this, where we're talking about gay stuff and the X-Men and mutants. It's pretty fun. But otherwise, yeah, just thank you for listening. I don't think this podcast still does not have a catchphrase. Keep reading Yuri. Boom. There you go. Catchphrase. And until next time, bye. Excel.